There aren't too many game developers here. How many game developers are here? Yeah? Yes, I'm the only one. That's great. So, the thing is, games are interactive pieces of art, right? And most interaction happens through buttons. So buttons are a huge deal in games, which is where interface design meets games. I have two controllers with me. We all know this one, I hope. It's the weird M-shaped controller. It's designed for Japanese people who apparently have 3 hands. I really think this is a cool controller because you can hold it this way, you can hold it that way. It's really, nobody did that. Everyone hold it this way, but the idea is there. It's great. They have an expansion port on the back, which is interesting because they decided not to just use it for buttons, to use it for other functionality as well. Love it. I've been playing with the Xbox 360 controller, which we all know and love. This is my friends in game design consider this the best controller ever made. It's the standard thing. It has the 4 buttons on your thumb, which is first introduced in the SNES, and this is the default kind of controller. It should be obvious because we're at UXcamp, but feel free to interrupt me at any time and turn this into a discussion or something like that. Okay, I'm going to make my first statement. I have here a 6-gun and a screwdriver. And the thing is, 6-guns and screwdrivers are somewhat alike in the sense that you both squeeze triggers to make them do something, but they have a very different, there's a great difference in their behavior. And some of you might know where I'm headed with this. The difference between squeezing a 6-gun and a screwdriver.
You get a punchback from the 6-gun?
This, you get a punchback, yeah. And you kill people, yeah, but I'm talking about, you might kill someone with a screwdriver. I'm going to put the punchback in because that's definitely the case. But I was looking for something else. There's a really huge difference in the triggers between the two.
Depending on how hard you squeeze them.
Yeah, the one that sends your this is pressure sensitive. Yes, that was actually not what I was looking for. There's I think one difference left.
One is continuous, and the other is discrete. So you can shoot 6 times maybe.
Yeah, the thing is, if you use the 6-gun to fire at a bottle, you squeeze, a bullet comes out, and the bottle explodes. The thing is, it doesn't matter when you release your fingers. Once you squeeze, button exits, goes through the bottle. Bullet exits, goes through the bottle. Screwdrivers, on the other hand, once you squeeze, it starts rotating. And when you stop squeezing, it stops rotating, right? That's the thing I was looking for. The 6-gun, the 6-gun is like the release doesn't matter, and in a screwdriver is like quasi-mode, as we sometimes refer to it, which is who was the guy who called this? Who coined the term quasi-mode? It was Raskin, Jeff Raskin, right? The quasi-mode. You press it, it starts rotating. You release it, it stops rotating, right? Which leads me to my first statement about game design. If we look at Super Mario World, right? In Global, this is what the buttons do. You have the left and right buttons to walk, up and down buttons, enter pipes, enter things, 2 different jumps, and then there's the Y button, which does 3 different things actually. It makes you run if you hold it. It makes you hold items and then shoot them when you release, and it makes you attack, like with a fireball or something. What we can see is that the walking, that's actually a screwdriver thing, right? When you press your left, you start walking, and when you release, you stop walking, right? Whereas entering a pipe or something is more like a 6-gun. If you press down on a pipe, you will go down, and once you release, it doesn't matter. The moment when you release doesn't matter. So if we look at this on the SNES controller, it looks like this. The left thumb controls both screwdriver buttons, screwdriver input, as well as 6-gun input. And the right thumb does so as well. This is why I love this game, but I feel it plays a lot less comfortable than a lot of other games. And I think this is part of that. I think part of it is that they mix the 6-gun buttons with screwdriver buttons. And if we look at Spelunky, which hopefully you will know as well, go check it out seriously. It's a roguelike game. The thing is, you walk and peek like up and down. With your analog stick, then you can jump, you do other things like that. And then there's the right trigger, which is the shoulder button, to run. And the thing here is that the analog stick, your left thumb, I can show it on the controller. The left thumb is screwdriver type button, screwdriver type analog stick. The right index finger, screwdriver. The right thumb is 6-gun. And I think this is part of why Spelunky plays so well. Is that they did not mix those two, which means that your one finger only controls either 6-gun things or or screwdriver things, meaning you are less likely to accidentally press a button because they behave in the same way, right? That's my first statement. And you may disagree, and you may stand up if you disagree. Screwdrivers and 6-gun don't mix. First statement. You are allowed to disagree. You are allowed to disagree either inside your head or outside of your head.
But they can mix.
They can mix. My bold rule is that they should never mix.
Why?
Why? Because it makes gaming more...
You mean under one hand?
Yeah, one finger should have either screwdriver buttons or 6-gun buttons.
Oh, okay.
And you know, I don't do just game design. When I do interface design, I also follow this rule. Buttons that behave in a different way should not be put in one list or in one.
And should they also have a separate shape?
Yeah, the thing is, with controllers, when you're designing a game for a console that has a certain controller, you don't have the freedom to actually shape the controller. So you're stuck with whatever's there. But that would be cool, yeah. And the thing is, they have the triggers. The Xbox controller has the 2 triggers, right? Those are very great to use as screwdrivers because they feel like screwdrivers. They are actually pressure sensitive. So yeah, my rule is to not mix them and to put them all on one finger with one time. Yeah, moving on. My second statement. This is a GTA Vice City, GTA Vice City. It's also a game I really love. The thing is, when you're designing games, especially for PC, you don't have exact control over the environment that the user will play it in. Some people have they have different keyboard layouts, or some people use a mouse with 7 buttons, some people use a mouse with 3 buttons. You don't have the control over that. But you do want to accommodate basically all situations. So what most designers do is they come up with a screen like this, and they just ask the user, you know, just design the interface yourself. Just tell me which button should do what thing. And what happens is, what happens in fact is you are asking users who might be 5 minutes into the game to design an interface for a game that you have worked on for months. So the thing is, my statement is, you should design the interface, not the user, right? Which is the second statement. And again, especially in game design, there's a reason that Grand Theft Auto does it like this. It's because it's very difficult to do it otherwise. But my statement is user-defined key bindings are bad.
Yeah, they're bad if no profiles are supplied for left-handed people.
Yeah.
I'm left-handed and I also have to remap all the buttons on the
Yeah, the thing is,
computer.
but I wouldn't call that user-defined anymore. If you have like profiles, I think that's a good idea. What I also think, it really depends on the game, or if you're working on some kind of other interface, it depends on the interface. But the thing is, I think we should not be asking the user, design your own interface. We should be asking them smaller questions, like, tell me where your hand is, tell me what kind of mouse you have, and then go from there. I prefer that much over just having them design their own interface.
Well, you can give them some control. I mean, I also don't agree with the fact that you shouldn't give them in the beginning like a whole definition of what is what. It's still, I don't think it's bad to give them some control, maybe a bit more hidden in the interface. If they just don't like a certain thing, that they can change it.
Yeah.
Maybe not everything, but like there are some things that, and this is not just for games. You can also see this on, like, for example, like the MacBook, when you gestures, you can
Australian scrolling.
Scrolling it.
Yeah.
There are just people who like it the other way and the other way. So it's like, I don't really see the need for really pushing this in one direction. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you can kind of define it as a company in the way that you think you should be done, but then maybe more hidden, you can still allow people to change it if they really want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, I don't think user-defined key bindings are bad. It sounds, but what you're actually trying to say is you shouldn't force it into people's face.
Yeah.
So I think what you're trying to say is that actually it's okay that people can do it, but it should be an expert thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is also, I think if your game, if you're designing a game, you should be wary of that. Some users might think that they prefer something, and then set it that way, and then think your game's crap because they messed up the controls. That might happen. Yeah, I think there's of course a spectrum, but I think most games should follow this rule rather than the other one. Yeah.
You just said about GTA that it would be too difficult. I'm not that familiar with the game, but why do you think? And after that, you said it would be better if you just ask questions to the user instead of setting the whole interface
Yeah.
by the user.
Yeah.
So why would that be like very difficult in this situation?
The thing is, if you're playing, I'm not really sure how GTA Vice City starts, but I can imagine it starts with a weapon that doesn't fire, something you use in melee, right? If at this point you are asking your user to tell you how to zoom in, right, this is a very difficult question for a user, because the user can't really, you know how your game is going to progress.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
But it will not be a problem if you have good default settings.
Yeah.
If your game have default settings, so you...
If the default is good, fewer people will mess it up, definitely.
And I'm not sure that this screen is unavoidable. User can play without seeing the screen.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem.
Yeah. Again, I'm not here to actually force rules. I'm just here to give my thoughts about. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. If you create a screen like this and you make sure that as few users as possible actually end up trying to do this, then you're definitely decreasing the problem. The third one is on-screen buttons. A lot of us developers are now dealing with on-screen buttons because we are developing for touch devices, phones and tablets. This is a game by a Dutch studio, which you might know. It has the on-screen buttons, as you can see. It has the pause button right here, it has the upgrades button right there, and these things above on top are actually also buttons. And the common idea about on-screen buttons is that they're bad, and that physical buttons are always preferred. That's basically what everyone thinks. Game designers think this, and players think this. Because the very obvious advantage to having physical buttons is that you can feel, you can sense where the buttons are, which you do unconsciously, right? You put your finger on your controller and you sense where the buttons are, so you can press them. You can't do that with a screen because the screen is flat for now. But screens are flat, so there's no sensing where the buttons are. But I also think that on-screen buttons have a few advantages. Let's see how many you guys can name, and I'll see whether I can fill in the list.
You can connect visual feedback directly to what you touch.
Yeah. Yes.
So there's an interesting visual relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say visual feedback. I mean, you have haptic buttons, right? Or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, the thing is also, what you might be hinting towards is that buttons can be contextual, right? I have a different screenshot. This is the Wind Waker. This is a game for the Wii U and the GameCube. The thing is, what they have here on the right top, this is actually not a touchscreen, but what they have here on the right top is they have the buttons on screen with the weapon that is binded to that button on top of it, so you can see which button maps to which weapon. And the thing is, if this were a touchscreen game, this would seriously make sense, right? Because you could just press the leaf and you would use the leaf. So the buttons can be contextual, which is another advantage. Cool. Any more? So I can think of one more, but probably we have.
Sizes and shapes, you're restricted by the physical shape of the...
Yeah. The thing is, there are, let's say, fewer restrictions in design, right? Any more?
You can control when they appear and they disappear.
Yeah. Let's put it here. Can be removed. Right? So I actually have one more, which is on a gamepad. The gamepad only gives you the information that a certain button is pressed. It doesn't give you the information where a button is pressed. This is information that we get from the touchscreen. Touchscreens are a lot more. Touchscreens are more. What's the word? Precise. On a touchscreen, if you press, you can actually, as a developer, you can actually see where that button is pressed. And if a user presses a button slightly to the left, you can see that it presses it slightly to the left of the center. So you can actually get feedback from where buttons are pressed, and this can be used to smoothen out the user experience, because when I design games, I make it so that when you press one button, that you press where you think the button is. So I can detect where the user thinks the button is. You know, we had a presentation about looking into the brain. This is a small hint. You can see where the user thinks that the button is. This is a great thing because you now can place the other buttons according to where the user thinks that the buttons are, which is another advantage. And the statement is, on-screen buttons are a blessing. Because there is one great disadvantage that on-screen buttons have over physical buttons, but there are also a lot of advantages. So there are these three. Maybe we can put some times here, because we did discuss that not in all cases user-defined key bindings are bad. Please do.
Yeah. I have access to both games on tablets and PC.
Yeah.
on-screen buttons are best in
Yeah.
because does it simply mean that there's that I enjoy PC gaming far more than anything because the controls do feel easier? Does it simply mean that there's still only bad designs
I
for tablet games?
I suspect this is the thing that I don't really. That's the crappy thing about trying other people's games. I can't really see how it works. Some games with on-screen buttons, they operate really poorly. Right? I don't really know why. I have designed games in which the on-screen buttons work fine, work well. I'm not sure whether these people are just not doing the right thing or whether the problem is with on-screen buttons. Yeah. More questions? And
For the on-screen,
Yeah.
that's just your hand, I believe,
Yeah.
mouse, I don't know. But if you have a controller, you have all the keys set, closed. While if you have on-screen, with your finger, you are separating certain
yeah, it depends.
buttons, and then you're slower, in my sense.
Yeah,
Therefore-
it depends, right? There are some games that actually mimic traditional controllers on the screen. I'm not sure how much gaming you've done on phones or on tablets, but a lot of games, they just mimic traditional controllers. So they just have a D-pad on the one hand, and they just have buttons on the other hand, and you just play like this. So it's the same experience as a controller. The added advantage of having on-screen buttons is that you can indeed also put them in different layouts if that fits your game, yeah.
Maybe also buttons are like maybe a bit of a relic from the touchpads that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a device that can detect where it is, it can detect which angle it is, it can detect not where you press it, but how you press it. If you
Great,
make
yeah.
figures on the screen, if you make, it can detect your camera, it can detect, then
Pressure
maybe
even.
your game would be better if we can get rid of the buttons.
Yeah.
I think it's,
I'm missing one, well, not statement, but it's that it depends on the game.
Yeah, it all
Like,
depends on the game.
The interaction is part of the game.
Yeah.
And some
Definitely.
games will need, I think, for example, replicating controller type buttons for a game is probably because that's the only way you can control that game.
Yeah, some games just require controller type.
Yeah, like, I don't know enough about game design, but I imagine that if you control, if you have like a point of view, or you, 3D shooter, or you're controlling like Mario,
Yeah.
you're controlling one object.
Yeah.
And that's very different from the game like SimCity.
Yeah.
Or
Thing is, yeah.
Civilization, where you have a map where you maybe you want to control multiple things.
Yeah. So indeed, yeah, this is what happens, and this is what we see happening right now. Games that are indeed your Mario-like platformers, they use controller-style buttons, and more of like time-lapse style games, they use indeed other gestures and things like that. Yeah, I think that is an advantage of having screens instead of controllers, is that you can choose how you have far more control over how the user interacts with your game, as opposed to a traditional controller.
Have you seen the PS4
Yeah.
controller?
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I just saw, what was it, the Jimmy Fallon comedy show presentation.
Yeah.
Is it innovative?
The thing is, the Ouya controller, which you may have seen, a lot of controllers are now indeed doing this. The Wii U controller, even the Wii U controller has a screen on it, which helps with because screens can be, as we mentioned, contextual. Yeah, I think in the future we will see indeed that these two will be a bit more. They will kind of join in the middle somewhere. There are phones with gamepad type buttons on them. There are like casings that you can put your phone in to have like game type buttons. Yeah. I think the Wii U controller really cool.
I'm not
Shout.
sure if I completely got the whole third point actually, but
Yeah.
it all really depends. I mean, I think on-screen buttons really gives a lot of versatility in a way that you
Yeah.
can really do a lot with it. You can do things that you just can't do with these physical buttons.
Yeah.
But physical buttons are the same as with like a smartphone compared to a normal phone. They will always have a certain intuitiveness to it that you can never beat with on-screen buttons. You know,
True,
just the fact that with a controller, you're holding it, you don't even have to watch, you know, if you really know this controller, you don't even have to watch the controller anymore. It's almost like an extension of your body.
Yeah, I
You
think
will never have this
indeed the only.
so I would even go that far as saying that for games especially, I would almost say that on-screen buttons are difficult, you know, like for
I think
whatever
the
other
only,
things.
indeed, the moment that physical buttons are, you know, the moment that we have to put them in the grave is when we can actually change the shape of the screen. That would be really cool, right? To have like screens.
And not even necessarily, you know, also the fact that you just know this button, this is also more limited, I think, to more simple interactions. And if you really have like a computer, you could never do this with only buttons, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you just have like, you need one button and you just quickly want to, you know, just like this is hit somebody with like a game or something, this is perfect. You don't need a touchscreen button there, you know.
Sure.
Is it also a case of habit? Because you use the controller in that way multiple times, you know that it's proportional.
No, I don't think so. No, with the screen you will never have the good thing about the screen is always that like you can have this button there and there. You can have different functions and you can do different shapes.
Yeah, but that's the case
With
of
the game you
habit.
don't want this, right?
No, it's
With
not,
some
it's not
games.
only a habit. I mean, you know how difficult typing on a smartphone or a tablet is. You see it, but you don't feel the keys. And
But I don't need to watch my phone all the times when I type.
I don't know. In my case, we're talking on a personal level now, but
Yeah, I mean, it's anecdotes, yeah.
I make many errors while typing on my
Yeah, because
iPhone.
you get less feedback, you mean, as
Yeah,
you do
yeah,
after
yeah.
your button.
It's
Yeah.
like it's worse with smaller screens because you have less
What do you think would help? What would help you type?
keyboard.
What would be the smallest modification that we could make to your phone to make the typing easy?
Make it vibrant.
Oh yeah, tactile feedback,
Yeah.
like a feeling a ridge between the keys.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the fact that if you like look at the keyboard on your tablets, it's kind of in a way, I mean, it makes sense because of just like making the tablet in itself, you know. But like, it's kind of it will never really become as good as a normal keyboard because it will always be these buttons on the same place. You know where they are. You don't even have to look at them. If you're good enough at typing, you just do this.
Yeah. The thing is
You will
that
never have this with the
to
only
have this
advantage
format.
you would change the layout and then you can't
Yeah.
do this anymore. So
indeed, to
that's
have
the
this
thing.
format in which the buttons are always in the same place,
And
it has its advantage. The obvious disadvantage is that you can't, is that as a designer you can't make it work for your game. But the advantage is indeed that it works with habits. Yeah.
Then I think it's weird at this point. This is for game design because I would think on game design this is actually really important. You want something that you don't want to think of. Now I'm pressing here. I know this changes here. You just want it with certain games. And I'm not saying exactly like SimCity. This wouldn't work. You know.
Yeah.
Like with just like let's say Mario. Try to redesign Mario with a touch screen or with like contextual control.
And a lot of people have tried.
You can change the layout of these controls, you know, but I think there's definitely an intrinsic value to the fact that these buttons are not on screen, they're like
Yeah.
fixed and they're
I
there.
agree, yeah.
For me personally, on-screen buttons don't make much sense in general, because I see it more like really like a relic from the history.
Yeah.
Like
True.
You know, previously we had some machine that we couldn't just design it in a way that it's all responsive, all interactive. So we had to define several parts of it that are responsive. That's the button, that's the part that you press and it makes some, you know, does some reaction. But with the touchscreen, it's actually all, you know, sensing and all can be responsive. So why should we imitate a physical button on a touchscreen? Right? It doesn't make any sense. But we can use much more rich interactions like direct manipulation, you know, pinch, zoom, rotating, using
Pressure and things.
you know, pressure, you know,
Tilting, yeah.
tilting, anything basically.
Yeah.
So I don't see any reason for like arbitrary drawing a
Yeah.
button on a screen and pressing the screen, I mean tapping the screen, pretending that I'm pressing a button. Yeah. I like it much more now.
Because yeah, I really agree with that. thing is, on-screen buttons are cool, but in a lot of situations you don't really want on-screen buttons. You just want something with the screen and interaction. Yeah. Come on.
So I think on-screen buttons, so then you cannot move, right? You need to rely heavily on the screen. And also I feel more control if I use the on-screen button. If I use the controller, I feel more control.
Yeah.
But if it's on the screen, it's like it asks you to do something and you follow that. But if you use the arrow, probably more smoothly. Sometimes if it's continuously, I feel more control of this thing.
Yeah.
But it's discrete and one by one, step by step, or you separate something, then will be more controlled by this game. And I need to learn how to play this game.
Yeah.
Follow this principle. This always makes me.
Yeah, I think I'm really waiting for phones that can actually deform the screen in a way that I can buy, that people can sense what I'm trying to do with them. I'm really waiting for that to happen. I would love for that to happen. Go invent this.
It will soon.
Yeah.
It's already there. Just not introduced that.
Do it.
Wait for it.
I would really love that. I think that would further. I would think that would further decrease the need for physical buttons if you can deform the interface so that you can sense, so that I, as a designer, can have people sense how I want them to interact with the screen. That would be cool.
I mean, it solves the tactility, but still doesn't solve the fact that you have to know kind of where things, it just deforms. You still don't know which this button is. You just feel the button.
Yeah.
You still have no idea what this button is.
Yeah, you have to look.
It's still,
Unless you know it. Yeah.
obviously, also would love this this technological breakthrough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have some. If you guys are interested, this is the game I'm working on. I'm developing it in the open, so the prototype is already online. You can download it from Google Play. You can just search for a prototype you can play. It has the on-screen buttons, which are really challenging to implement right, but I think can be done correctly. So yeah, this was my talk. Please keep the discussion going. That was the entire idea, to liven up some discussion. I loved your contributions. Thank you very much. I'm not sure how we are on time.
Yeah, we still have 10 minutes, more or less.
So yeah, I would love to hear more from you, really.
I think like the Nintendo Wii is also a nice example in a way that it's like when you look at the games that you can play with it, they're really simple, basic games. If this would now be launched on another console, not many people would be interested, I think. But it's just so interesting just because of the fact that this controller is so intuitive. They go even further than these buttons. It's like with the buttons you don't have to look at. You kind of know this is now here. That you even start like incorporating real life how you would do this thing. So then I think that's more the direction of games. But of course, now you're developing things for Android phones. Then of course you have to use on-screen buttons. You don't have much.
There are a lot of games that use the other functionalities. I mean, phones have a lot of cool things. As we said, they have you can use tilting. It has the proximity sensor. There are a lot of games who do great things. Games such as Osmos, which you might know, which is basically a game in which you can fire in any direction, and just tapping the screen in some direction makes it go that way. That's great. You couldn't do that on a controller. That's typically a great phone game. Yeah.
Or like doodle jump, like the guy jumping.
Yeah, with the tilt. Yeah.
I'm thinking about action-oriented games. So, for example, you have Mario, and if you're running and you need to jump at a certain time.
Yeah.
I still find it easier if you have a controller, because it's also was said, you know where the button is, but also you can rest your fingers on the buttons and just press it the moment you need it.
Yeah, that's the thing with that's the problem with touchscreens. You can't put your finger on the touchscreen and then press. On a regular controller, you already have your finger on the button, and you just press when you need it. On the touchscreen, you have to actually keep your thumb off the screen and then press it down when you need it. That's
accidentally press it if you hover over it.
Yeah.
So So I think that the touchscreen interfaces are good and are progressing.
Yeah.
But still, if you have a game that's mainly action oriented, so this you require a really precise timing,
Yeah.
then you still need a physical controller.
Yeah. Hence that there are that there are very few of those type of games actually developed for phone.
Also, that's why I think that the PS5, so the new PSP, the console is nice because you have some physical buttons, but you also have a touchscreen.
Yeah.
So you can combine them when you need to.
Great.
Yeah.
This is actually also something I would like to see is indeed to solve this problem. I know that there are Blackberries that do this, that you can actually both use the touchscreen in the normal sense that we are used to on our Nexuses and iPhones, but you can also actually press down. Once you have your finger on the screen, you can press down and it registers that as an extra click. Yeah, that will be really cool.
But this whole discussion is, I think, because you put these rules in this type of way.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the discussion is about which buttons are better. It's because I missed the word depending on.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, when I give a talk, I never use depending on because I want to
create the discussion.
Yeah, I want to create the discussion. Yeah.
Because if you listen, there's a difference between the Kinect and the Wii as well. It's a platform you design for, and then you design better games for one type of button or interaction.
Yeah.
And that's the same here. I would not play a tower defense game with an Xbox controller. But yeah.
I wouldn't play a tower defense game at all.
Different tastes.
Yeah, so indeed, yeah. All depends on the game, and I try to design the rules not to focus on game development alone. It works across interface design and human interaction in general, and it all depends on the application, yeah. I just like to make bold statements. I'm actually as stupid as to try to indeed bring an action game to a phone. This is actually me playing an action game on the phone. I think it works well, but it's really challenging. It's really the worst you can do, right? You're trying to put an action game on the phone, on the touchscreen.
And you also design the character to look like you.
Yeah.
You just forget the red thingy over it.
Yeah, I didn't bring my banana here.
Yeah, in games like this, you see on the phone that all the touchscreen controls are placed in the bottom half of the screen.
Yeah.
But I see that you place them at the top.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to your reasoning.
And you can probably answer your own question.
Yeah, also, it may be easier to hold the phone.
Yeah, but that's not it. What could another reason for me to do such a stupid thing?
Visibility.
Yeah, visibility.
I think, yeah, but you obscure more of the screen in this way.
Yeah, so why would I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking.
Why would I do that?
The visual feedback.
Yeah, but it's actually a much simpler answer. In this game, the bottom part of your screen is the most important part because you're descending. Hence the buttons on top.
Okay. Maybe that wasn't clear from
But
the
aren't you covering too much of the
No.
screen?
The idea is that you hold your phone. Where's my phone?
It's very useful. I mean, it's very comfortable to have buttons in this place.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea is that you hold your phone like this, so fingers on the side. I'm a crazy guy because everyone pushes the button on. I'm nuts. Don't do what I do. Don't do drugs.
I've seen some concepts of Microsoft where they put the sensor behind the screen. So, and trying to tackle the problem of, having big thumb, big fat thumb in front of the screen. And actually have a sensor at the back where you can, but then it becomes like a touch pad with a pointer. Because, I don't see it taking off.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to play. They're actually phones made by Sony Ericsson, which have controller type buttons on them. They have 4 buttons on the left, on the right, but I don't think any of you has such a phone. So it's also a failed concept, but it's a really interesting idea. Was that it? Is that our discussion? Great. Thank you.
Now we have 15 minutes break until the next round.
Where do I need to go? You can make anything you want. That can be or there's some constraints. So you can